really honoured to be here to present to you all. I'm going to present to you all our employer brand research. So look, I can go for an hour and a half talking about this. This is the favourite part of my job, is going through this data. But I know we've got about half an hour, so I'm going to go through a little bit quicker today so we don't keep you too long. But I do want to make it interactive there. So if there's questions, if there are things that aren't making sense, just ask at any time. We can go through whatever you want to see. If we want to see things in more detail, by all means, we can do that. So what is our employer brand research? Well, it's the largest employer brand research in the world. It's in 38 countries around the world with 170,000 respondents worldwide. But today we're only going to talk about New Zealand data there. And so what they've done is they've shown the 150 largest companies in New Zealand by headcount there. So Fonterra being number one, 150th company is typically around 1,000 FTE. And people are researched on their awareness and attractiveness of these companies. So they asked two questions, very simply. Do you know enough about this company to answer questions about it? So New Zealand Police, for example, everyone has heard of New Zealand Police, but do you know enough about them to answer questions about them? So that determines an awareness score. The very next question is, would you like to work for this company? And that gives you an attractiveness score. So those are the two numbers that you'll see throughout this research. It then also dives into where people are looking for work, what is driving different talent in the market and what they're looking for, what people are thinking about topics like work from home, about equity, around upskilling, and what they're looking for in the market. So we'll go through all of those over the next half an hour or so. So as we go through there, people often ask, what's a good sample size? When was the data taken? Who took the data? How is it all done? So it's done independently from Randstad. We do it through Kantar in New Zealand. It's taken between December and February every year. The data is taken there, and the sample size is 4,000 New Zealanders. So I'm often asked, what's a good sample size? Is that representative of the population? What's good, what's bad? So it's recommended that for New Zealand's population size, a good representative number is 500 people. So 4,000 is very strong. We will see political polls from time to time. They're 800 to 1,000 people. So 4,000, very strong sample size, and really gives a good insight into what people were feeling in the market there.
Right.
Yeah, it was taken in December and February. So there is some context there, because sometimes there can be things that happen in the media and things that change. So if we, yeah, exactly. And if we look at 2024, for instance, when this was taken a year ago, in December and February, there hadn't been any government announcements in terms of restructures announced to the size that happened from March to July onwards. So the government results were actually not as bad as what they were this time this year, after there has been kind of mass redundancies, mass restructures that have happened in that public sector space. It's also happened in some private sector as well there, by all means, but public sector was very heavily impacted over the last year. And this just shows a breakdown of the respondents. So we tell Kantar to try and match population levels as much as they can. So more people in the North Island, there's more respondents in the North Island. Male and female, very closely matched there. It's got their education level, what their current working situation is, and we can also look at the age or the year they were born as well. But I'll quickly go through the data and then we'll see what comes up. So the first slide that we're going to show you is what the most attractive sectors are there. And how you read this graph, because it's a lot of dots on the screen, is the further right you go is how aware people are of these companies in your sector. The further upwards they go is how attractive the sector is. So I'll give you an example. Early childhood education. Not many people know the companies that are in there. There's companies like Busy Bees or Kindercare. But those who are aware of those companies, they're very attracted to them. So they have very low awareness, but very high attractiveness. Whereas things like accommodation, food services, so there's companies like Sky City Hotels, Millennium Hotels, McDonald's, restaurant brands are in here. They have high awareness, but maybe they have some work to do in being a more attractive employer there to get higher in the market there. The number one this year in terms of, if you look at where you want to be, it's in this top right column. It used to be a golden square, but we thought for the companies that weren't in that golden square, it was probably a little bit tough for them. So now we keep it the same color, but that's where you want to be, where you have high awareness and high attractiveness. And we'll look through some of the companies in particular now. So I've got a little subsection of kind of some of the employers from different areas in New Zealand, and we'll have a look and I'll just see if there's kind of any surprises. So you'll see this maybe in the media every year where it says Air New Zealand's the top employer. Comes from this research. This is just one page of the research there. So Air New Zealand was number one. They ranked 64.8% attractiveness. So when people were asked, would you like to work there? 65% of people said, yes, I would want to work there. So they are significantly above number two. Number two was actually MBIE, but I've just got a subsection of companies up for today there. In terms of awareness, it's do you know enough about this company to answer questions about it? And Air New Zealand ranked number one there. So Spark, Westpac, Genesis, Auckland Council, Fonterra, all have very high awareness there, but the attractiveness we see over there on the right, where Air New Zealand somehow always seems to win in there. And I think when we look into the data, and we've looked into some of the raw data, a lot of the reasons why is the attractive salary and benefits, in particular the benefits, where people think, and they do get a lot of discounts on travel in that company and organization there. They're a sexy brand, for lack of better words there. They're a brand that has won a lot of awards in terms of best airline in the world. And it's New Zealand's only international airline as well. So there's a lot of pride that goes with that company. So they have significantly won this research years on years. So yeah, I'll quickly go through, but any surprises, any thoughts? Go for it.
There's such a massive gap between number one and New Zealand and then the rest, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's 64 and then next is 47 and second was 50. So there
We did the rest.
I did because year on year it's been very similar. What we do have is if you win the research for 3 years in a row, then you're actually going a thing called the Hall of Fame and you can't actually win the research the next 3 years. So it's kind of a little bit of a punishment for being so good. But so next year, Air New Zealand's out. So there will be a new winner next year. And it's really up for anyone's grab because those companies from 50 to 45, there's about 10 to 15. The average attractiveness was 37%. So if you looked at every company in the research, the average attractiveness is 37 there. So
what's the reason behind so many universities, like six in the top 10 as attractive?
So I used Auckland University as the dummy company that we're going through here. So it's brought some tertiary companies in to compare against them. In terms of the reality, the ones that were in the top 10 were University of Auckland, University of Canterbury, and AUT. But some of these others are not actually in the top 10. This is a subset. So I've shown 15 companies. But when I send through the research here, it's going to have exactly who the top 20 were. So this is a live dashboard that we're working on today. And the reason why I use this is we can be interactive. So what I sometimes like to do is come in here and think, okay, that's what everyone's thinking. What are 18 to 24-year-olds thinking? That's the future workforce, right? What are they thinking of these organizations? Who becomes number one if we turn 18 to 24-year-olds on? Still Air New Zealand. Yeah. But University of Canterbury does move significantly up. Victoria University. So the universities are attractive to this age group, right? Because they are studying, they're going through this group, and that can become a prospective employer. In New Zealand, University of Auckland, for instance, has 10,000 employees. So they become very attractive for that age range.
Of people that fall in that percentage because you had 4,000 to start with. You say 18 to 24, how many numbers are that?
Great question. So if I go back to that country sample composition, it will give me not the number, but it will give the percentage of that 4,000 for you. So let's just take a look. It is on some of the pages when we go through, because sometimes what clients will do is they're like, can you show me what an 18 to 24-year-old male who also works as an engineer thinks of my organization? And sometimes there's like 3 people who come through and there's not enough of a sample size to give any correct data. So there is some screens where that does show, but on here, it was roughly 20% of the population, of the sample size. So 800 people, give or take.
Do you do diversity as well?
Yeah, so good question. So this is a global platform around the world. The only countries that had asked for ethnicity data to be in the research are New Zealand and Australia. So in terms of the dashboard, we don't have ethnicity data, but we do have it in raw data. And what we release is a second series that comes out in October every year that specifies and goes into an ED&I series. So it looks at things like ethnicity and what different ethnicities are thinking on and what their key drivers are. But it also looks at more than that. It looks at people who have disabilities, whether that's a physical disability or a neuro disability, and what they're thinking in the market, or what barriers people are facing to employment and how we can adjust some of those barriers. So that's a second series that we release now, and it comes out October every year. There. So yes,
Do you have to increase the sample size of 4,000 to get a significant number of the different ethnicities and diversity in there?
no, so we try and match population level. So to give you an example, Pacifica in Auckland is roughly around 12 to 15% of the population, and we had 13% in the research. So it's a lower, I guess when you're looking at that number, it's a lower number, but it's still representative of the population there. So yes, and the ethnicities that we have match the census. So I think there's 8 that list, and then you have the option for other. We do the exact same. So we have 8 that are listed, and then the option for other, and to specify what other is, if that's the case.
Things in the list of 4,000 that fall under a certain extreme category. You can say, well, good to have the A data that is representation of the people, but 8 opinions out of 4,000 not always gives you the whole picture.
That's it. And look, there's some that will fall smaller than what we think. So when we're looking to say Latin American, it might be 150 respondents. We do have to, if someone's wanting to know what someone from Latin America thinks, we might have to give that context that, yes, we have the data, but the sample size is not going to be huge, really representative. Yeah, exactly. And look, as we go through, that number will pop down towards the bottom down here on certain slides there as well. What's that? Yes. Yeah, there you go. Well, that is very nice to know. Yeah, there you go. So then it would be in our raw data, we would have the data as well. So we'd be able to see that. Yeah.
Capturing whether or not, like migrant, non-migrant.
That we do not have, no. So we do have it based on your ethnicity, but not on migrant and non-migrant. Yeah. Potentially something we can look for future years, though.
I think it's quite relevant.
Yeah, it definitely is. And especially when you look at one of the things that could go with that is your current working rights in New Zealand. Are you a permanent resident work visa? That could go with that as well.
Right, so when you said New Zealanders, you mean people that were in New Zealand, whether they were tourists or not?
They have working rights to work in New Zealand because we have their working situation in New Zealand, so it wouldn't be tourists.
Working tourists, I mean, because
It could be working tourists, yes, yes.
from the Netherlands doing work.
Yeah. Yeah, but typically on a working visa, no, not all, but a lot of working visas allows for part-time work only, and a lot of the work in, when you saw the numbers on that first page, 68% of the respondents were in full-time work. So that would be a small sample size, but you're right, some could be working on tourist visas. Nice. So this is just going to show you a little bit of a different graph of what we saw before with that awareness and attractiveness. And Air New Zealand really skews the graph on this because they're so much higher than the others, but up in that far right corner. And then you've got Westpac who are doing well, Spark who's got high awareness, maybe needs to work on attractiveness a little. Deloitte, very high attractiveness in this graph here. The awareness is a little bit low, but it's a little bit skewed because I've tried to choose 15 of the largest companies. If I put Deloitte against all 150, then they're going to move a lot further along this graph here. So it skews it a little bit that I've tried to select some of the largest companies to show you today as well. So what we do with this is we present it to clients around how they can improve their EVP, how can they improve their branding, how can they attract things for different years. And what this creates, and this is Auckland University's data here, but this is our data to present, so I'm just showing you what this looks like, is an improvement matrix. So it's saying, if you told the story in your adverts, if you told the story when you were doing interviews, when you're doing your career website, when you're doing LinkedIn posts, whatever it may be that is employer reaching out to prospective employee, it's saying you could do things like talking about caring for the environment, but it's not going to have the biggest impact in driving attractiveness going forward. It's saying, telling the story about having a good reputation, your office location, your job content. Those are things to maintain, but again, aren't going to have the big impact to change your attractiveness in the future. What it is saying is, if you told the story about good work-life balance, around offering equal opportunities to people, about long-term job security, having attractive salary and benefits, and fostering a pleasant work atmosphere, these are the things that are going to have the biggest impact. And so one example of a case study that we have with this that I can talk about, because they're a key client of ours, is Southern Cross Health Society. So they went on a 3-year journey on how they could improve their employer branding. And so they changed their EVP, they changed their offering, they changed their benefits. But what they did is they talked about it at every aspect of their process. So whether that was in the advert and matching the advert to what people are looking for, whether it was on their website, whether it was in their recruitment process with their recruitment partners, every single thing they did. And it took 3 years for the data to really change. But for the first time in 15 years in this research, we have an insurance company that has ranked higher than one of the 4 large banks in New Zealand. So it has been a long time since that's happened, and they have been the ones that have done it by really utilizing the data and using that to build their brand and build what they're doing there. So I'm going to go through to some general data there, and then we'll check if there's any questions as well around key driver importance. So this is now what people are looking for when they're looking for a job there. There's a lot of numbers on the screen. Very simply, if it's over 100, it's of more importance to the individual when they're looking for a job. If it's under 100, it's not that it's not important, but it's not as important when they're looking for a job there. So the number one thing people are looking for in New Zealand when they're looking for a job from all 4,000 respondents is good work-life balance. Second is attractive salary and benefits. Third is good training. Fourth is pleasant work atmosphere. And fifth is long-term job security. So how do we utilize these numbers? There's a lot that goes there, right? What do we do with them? Yeah, go for it.
Good work-life balance. I mean, it's explained because it means a lot of different things to a lot.
No, and that's exactly why it's not explained, because it does mean a lot of things to different people. One of the things that does separate out from that in here, though, is there is the option of possibility to work remote and from home is separated out as its own thing. So good work-life balance will mean different to me than it will to you, than it will to you. So it means different to everyone in this room. Yeah, there. But everyone is wanting it in some kind of fashion, right? It's showing that as that number one there. And look, one of the things we do is we're able to utilize this data by role type, by job family, by age range, by gender. So if we look at IT roles, for instance, that possibility to work remotely goes from all the way down here, what's that, like kind of 12th in that list, to number 2. So different jobs are looking for different things. And then that's how we write our adverts. So if we know that that's what people in IT are looking for, then we need to make sure that that's mentioned in our adverts, that that's mentioned in our conversations with candidates, so that's mentioned the whole way through. Otherwise, we're not doing our job. We're not going to get the right talent that come through to match what people are looking for there.
Do you find that got their changes depending on how the economy is?
Yeah, definitely. So even
So, mine was like, when the employment market was hot, a lot of employers might have been worried about their brand and awareness.
Yep.
But now that the employment market's not, are they actually spending as much money in that area now than they would have been, 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, well, I think it's almost been a little bit of the opposite. So this is what employees are looking for. And if I look at the data from a year ago to now, and the job market has been tougher this year than it was January 2024 there. 2024 was tough, but January 2024 wasn't as. What we've actually seen is last year, there was kind of 5 things people were looking for, and they separated above the 100, whereas now there's 8. And kind of if we look at the reason why and why people are looking for more things now than other things, I think people have a little bit of a fear of leaving jobs right now. I think most large organizations that I've talked to have their attrition at all times low there. And so there's a fear of, if I leave this job, what's to say I go to another job and they have a restructure? So they're wanting to see everything in that job if they're going to take the chance of moving there. So actually, it's gone from 5 things to 8 things. There's less jobs in the market. There's more people unemployed. but people are wanting to see more things, is what we've seen from year to year. And to give you kind of some numbers or two examples of when we've utilized the data. So we had one client working in a contact center space, traditionally had 70% female applications, wanted to try get that to 50-50, male, female. So they asked us, could you just write us an advert? We'll do everything else. We just want you to write us an advert. So we did. We charge, of course. And then they wanted to see how close to 50-50 could you get. So we utilized this data. I went up to here. I looked at what males who were 18 to 40 year old, because 18 to 40 was 85% of their population, of their staffing age, and what they were looking for in the market. And then we wrote the advert based on that. So we wrote every benefit in order of what males 18 to 40 were looking for. And we got it not to 50-50, but we got it to 45-55. So from 30-70 to 45-55 shows that the data was working, right? The other one was a question was asked, do we have ethnicity data? We do. We have the raw data. So again, we had to get Pacifica applications to match population level. So we did the exact same thing. We put up a secondary advert targeting Pacifica applications because we realized we weren't hitting the numbers from our initial advert there. And then when we looked at the numbers post the recruit, we were 2% above population level. So we had a little bit of plus minus to work with, because if one's up 2%, that means someone's down 2%. But we were able to get there by the end. Go.
You still recruit a lot of, like a lot globally, and if so, do you use the global data to target specific countries?
Yeah.
This might be different from the Netherlands or.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's different in every country. So yes, we do. So for Fonterra, for example, when we go down to the Fonterra and we present this data to them, they want to see New Zealand's data, they want to see Australia's data, and they want to see China's data, for instance. So different organizations will want to see different things there. To give you some context as well, yes, it is very different in different countries. So when I look at it, in 38 countries, there were only 2 countries in the world who valued working from home over the flexibility of hours. So to give you that context, if you could choose, I can work from home some days, or I can choose my hours. So I can start at 6 and finish at 2. 36 countries around the world chose the flexibility of hours. 2 countries chose work from home. Those 2 countries were New Zealand and Australia. So for context, there's some big changes. So we did ask the next question about what does that come to? And so New Zealand and Australia had made the largest amount of the next question being, have you made life-changing arrangements on the thought that work from home is here to stay? So whether that was I got a pet, or I moved further away from the office, or I now can pick up my son 2 days a week, or I can go to sport, or whatever it may be, 76% of New Zealanders had made some kind of life-changing arrangement on their thought that work from home was here to stay. Whereas in other countries, that was closer to around 50-48% there. So that's one of the things that we saw in the data there. So yeah.
Something was signaled by.
Look, I don't have this. Look, this isn't just my opinion, so I can't give data on this. But my opinion is that New Zealand and Australia were 2 of the countries that had the largest lockdowns there. And did that play a part? And people got used to it, right? We had between 250 to 350 days in lockdown across these 2 countries. And did that become something where people got used to?
Related kind of question. So, company, I'm in HR consulting, so it's a background question here. A lot of companies want people to come back to the office because we see the ineffectiveness of training in the workplace.
Yeah.
People just collaborate better if you're in the office together. So have you guys got data on?
We sure do. Yeah, so let's show you what that looks like. So let's go to that now. I think what we have seen anecdotally and talking with companies is that good employees are good employees whether in the office or they're at home. Bad employees are bad employees in the office or at home as well, but maybe they're worse at home. So it's those ones that you maybe have to look for. So if we look here, in this teal color is I'm not working remotely at all. So 37% roughly. And this is 5-year data is what the lines are showing. So 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. This blue one here is hybrid. So went down in 2024. And I think we did see a lot of companies last year have a return to work mandate. So to give you an example, in New Zealand had that. They were building a new office out by the airport and they had a mandate for everyone to return to the office for that new office. They've backed away from that in the last year. So what we've seen is that stayed roughly, if we look at the last 3 years, 31, 27, and then back to 30. This one here, it's impossible to work remotely. So maybe they are teachers, maybe they are doctors, maybe they are in construction. Their role doesn't allow them to work remotely. This one here in black is 100% remotely. So if we see 2021, 2022, 100% remotely was quite high. As that kind of died down, it's roughly around 10% of people. I don't really know many people, but maybe it's people that my colleague Martin works for in digital that are getting that 10% there. And then lastly down here, it's kind of no, but it's more of, I guess, a passive aggressive way of saying no, is that it's possible, but my employer doesn't allow it because it's still a no. So if you add that to no, 40% of people are not working remotely at all. 30% of people are there. So yeah, talking to large organizations, we kind of see that hybrid is here to stay in some fashion around the large organizations here. But what that fashion is differs from company to company. So some are doing 1 day from home and 4 in office. Some are doing 2 and 3, and then some are 3 and 2. Don't really see any other kind of combinations. Those are the main ones that I'm seeing. Yeah, just see one organization the other day that was 3 in every 10 days. I was like, that's a little bit trickier to manage there, but I guess different things do different things. So yes, that's some data, but we can also break that down if you want to see later by white collar, blue collar, because that also makes some different changes around that too.
You also have retention chart.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think right now companies are holding on to stuff, but what's going to happen when companies start to hire? Are there people who have been staying in jobs because there's not a lot of jobs out there? What's that going to look like post there? So if we look at this data here, we've got 2 questions here. 14% of people changed employer in the second half of last year. So what's that, roughly 1 in 6, just over 1 in 7 there. Just under 1 in 4 plan to change employer in the first half of this year. I think if we looked at that data when we do our next lot of research that comes out in December, called Work Monitor, it's going to be way less than a quarter changed employer in the first half. They may have planned to, but were there jobs out there, were there things that matched? There we will see. The reasons to leave employer, and black is this year, blue is last year, and teal is 2023, almost match the exact same reasons of why people join an employer. It's if the employer doesn't have what they thought they wanted to, they become reasons for leaving. So to improve my work-life balance, well, we saw work-life balance was the #1 driver on the other page. There's too low compensation due to the rising cost of living, or I received an offer I could not refuse. Salary and benefits. That was #2 on the previous page. It's #2 and 3 here. I lack career growth opportunities was a #4 driver on the previous page, #4 here. So essentially, if people aren't finding what they're looking for, they're going to leave.
It's a case of having aspirations to deliver these things that people want, and they're not actually implementing them in the workplace.
That's exactly it. So maybe they were sold a picture of that you have this, join the workplace, and maybe you don't. And so they leave. Yeah.
Back to, I looked at a couple of job ads a while ago, and for the first time ever, I saw in a job ad saying we offer the 9-day fortnight.
Yeah.
Is that becoming more popular? I know it's overseas, but it's the first time I ever saw that in New Zealand ad.
Yeah, look, there is a couple of organizations like Unilever, for example, have moved to a 4-day week there and have kept salaries the same, moving to a 4-day week there. Is it becoming more popular? No, I haven't seen it really take off yet.
My job, I'm actually doing that already.
Yeah.
But we don't get the compensation for that. It's not sort of a common.
4 days, 10 hours, or is it?
So it's but you basically, yeah.
So Unilever, no, they went 4 days, normal hours. You didn't have to do more, and they kept compensation the same. So they trialed it and they have kept it in place. And what they have seen from their results, and this is just one organization.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think some of Scandinavia have as well. They've seen productivity has increased because people are more rested and people are doing things. So look, I think it is things that we will see in here, probably more in a 5 to 10 year cycle though, because if we look, Australia is just talking about it now about moving to a 4-day week. But if you're talking about it become legislation to become through, you're probably talking a few years, and then probably give companies a few years to adapt to it. And that's just one country, right? Yeah, so I think it's more a 5 to 10 cycle before it becomes really prevalent in the market. You will see different organizations try different things, but it's not something that we're seeing be very common yet. It does come down to productivity.
As long as you can track productivity and it's not falling behind, then
Yeah, and that's what Unilever have seen, is that productivity hasn't gone down. Yeah,
right line.
Yeah.
People just basically make more of an effort in the shorter hours.
yeah. Yeah, we're more rested and ready to go. So they gave 32 strong hours instead of maybe 42 good hours as well. Yeah, anytime, right? Yeah. Uh, this one that I'll go through here was kind of no surprise to us, but it just maybe told a little bit of a story. So we asked people, how motivated are you in your current job? So if you add 5, 4, and 3 together, 85% of people ranked at a 3 and above that they were motivated in their job. 15% of people weren't essentially motivated in their job. Has this changed in the last year? Probably more negatively. So 22% of people were feeling less motivated in the last year than they were the previous year. So we asked the next question of why. If you were more motivated, why? If you were less motivated, why? There. And so as it just loads, so if you were more motivated, it was due to having strong work-life balance. Maybe no surprise, we talked about that a lot today. They felt valued or supported by their manager. They felt they had a manageable workload. They felt confidence in job security and stability. And they felt they had opportunities to grow, amongst other things, but those being in the top 5. Whereas those who were less engaged or less motivated than a year ago, they felt they needed a higher salary or higher benefits. They felt undervalued by their manager or under-supported. They had a lack of recognition in their roles. They had limited opportunities for career growth or advancement. And then lastly, they had poor work-life balance there. In interest of time, because I know I've gone a little bit over, I just want to go through 2 last things, if that's all right with everyone. And then I will finish off there and try not to keep you all too long. But 2 of the things that are a little bit topical in the market is reskilling there. So New Zealand has an aging population there, and how are we going to reskill? And I want to give 2 examples of how different organizations are thinking about reskilling. So St. John have realized that they have an aging population in their workforce. They have staff who have been in the workforce and have great knowledge. They've been working in the company for 15, 20 years. They've got all this knowledge, all this experience. How can they keep them in the workforce as they're unable to do some of the physical tasks that they've previously done? So they're starting to do some training with their staff on how they can proceed to office-based jobs when they're no longer able to do physical-based jobs. So I thought that's quite a nice example of what an organization is doing around reskilling their staff, because what this number shows here is that essentially everyone wants to reskill, whether it's learning new skills in the job you've got or learning skills for the next job you take on. Everyone wants that opportunity to reskill. And when we look at the data, we could put the filters on earlier by age, by gender, whatever it is, everyone wants to reskill. So I thought that was a nice example. The other one that I just want to quickly talk about is IKEA. So they're about to enter the New Zealand market, right? They're opening their store in December. So recently they had AI come into their contact center about a year ago, and it was able to answer parts of the call. Not all of the call, but parts of the call, the security checks and some of the earlier bits on. But that amount of work that AI took off their staff impacted 500 jobs globally. So what they did is they reskilled their staff to be virtual interior kind of design experts, so that when you're in the store, you could connect on an iPad to someone globally and ask them questions about the products that you have in store, because they were talent that were used to dealing with the general public, they were used to dealing on the phone, so they just had to reskill their knowledge on products, so they didn't lose that staff, they just used them in a different way. So I thought that was a nice way of reskilling to not lose the staff due to AI advancements, right? And then just one last section, I promise. Is around AI and what we're seeing in the market. And look, this question here is, what extent are you using AI in your work today? Only 5% said I'm using it every day. I'm in that 5%. I use it every day, whether it's to answer a dumb question I have or anything there. I'm using it every day. One of the examples that I have is one of my colleagues recently had a job that needed a cover letter. And we saw the cover letter come through, and 14 of the first 16 were the same word for word. No tailoring, no differences. It was only by the second one when she was like, I'm sure I've read this before. And she had, and she read it again and again and again. And so part of me was like, good on them for using tools, but bad on them for not tailoring it or using the information to help them or to change them. Like, let it give you a base and then edit back from there. So it was the same word for word. In terms of AI and in New Zealand, we've only been asking these two questions for the last 2 years. What do you expect the impact on your job to be? So if you add positive and neutral together, 81% say positive or neutral. Globally, there's a lot more of a fear of AI than there is in New Zealand. We have seen this change year on year a little bit, where New Zealand's getting a little bit more nervous around what that happens. Look, there will be jobs that are impacted, but I think for the most part, it will help make jobs efficient rather than take some jobs. There will be some jobs that go, and we're seeing some that are starting to, like data entry jobs, for example, are roles that now can be done by AI. So there will be some things that are impacted there. It will. Yeah, there you go. And that could be wise. No. And I think that's where we're seeing in this next question is, do you expect AI to have an impact? Yeah. Let the computer do it. Do you expect AI to have an impact on your job in the next 5 years, or is this already the case? So this one, yes, a considerable impact. It was 22% last year. It's 29% this year. So it's only 7% increase, but it is increasing year on year. So it's just something to track as we go forward on what the impact of AI is going to be, because it's just developing at rapid pace, right? No one really knows that's going to happen. So between December and February. So December 2024, February 2025. Yeah, 7 to 8 months old. Yeah. Same time every year. Yeah, for this research. We do another research that is taken between November and December, and that comes out in February. There's a little bit of a shorter time lapse for that one because it's 1,000 people sample size, so it's a little bit easier for us to put in presentation form. Whereas this one being 4,000 people, it's finished in February. We get the data back in May, and then we have to put it in presentation. So it generally comes out about mid-June every year is when it's released.
Large companies internally. So do you go to Air New Zealand and say you run these questionnaires internally and then show them the results?
Yeah, so we present it to lots of large organizations. So today I was at University of Auckland. Yeah.
That is the global survey.
Global survey, yes.
Go to Air New Zealand and say we don't run an internal survey.
No, typically large organizations will have their own platform for doing their own internal surveys. Occasionally they'll ask us to do things like exit surveys or things like that, but no, typically they have their own staff engagement platforms that they do for that. Sorry, at the back, and then we'll...
Some of the what you can do about it. Data fantastic, but it is a reaction that comes from it. So go through that. Is question number one. And number two is those initiatives. Is there something that companies can take from it? So do they get the research or is...
Yeah, so good question. So first of all, yes, when we go to companies, we send through the full pack afterwards and everything that we send through. I have some clients ask, can we have access to this dashboard? Unfortunately, right now is no, but I would like to sell it one day to clients and be like, you can go and do this and play with it on your own. But we send through a full pack with their own data and all the details through that we go through with any filters that we want. The first question on, again, sorry, was?
So the actions that you can take from an EVP perspective, there were drivers why people would come to your brand or why they wouldn't. So you had things about what you could do about it?
Yes.
So do you advise in that space?
Yes, we definitely do. So yeah, Southern Cross being one of the examples, but there's others. We've worked with IAG, we've worked with St. John, we've worked with Mitre 10 on how they can grow and utilize this for their EVP. And again, those sessions would go into a little bit more in depth around the data and how they can utilize that for growth, and then how we track that over the next few months, over the next year. Because when a big brand like those make changes to their brand, you don't really see you see the results in small increments. So it might be you increase 2 or 3% one year, and then the next year's another 2 or 3%. It doesn't happen all at once, because when you are a large brand, people already have a perception of you. So it's sometimes hard to change that existing perception. But yes, we do, and we work in a little bit more detail than what you've seen today. Cool. Any other questions, thoughts? Yeah.
So who does this go to? Like, could I do the survey or no?
So
I know you.
yeah, so Cantor, yeah. So Cantor find 4,000 New Zealanders for us and do the survey independently. So how they find those 4,000, that I don't know. That's up to them. It is a paid survey there. So that is selected through there. So yes, you could be selected one day there.
So you don't know, how do we just get added onto this?
No, so that's through Cantor. There's the people that they register through there. We give them a base on, yeah, we give them a base on who we want to see and what we want to see, which is essentially matching population levels. But we let an independent agency do it for us so that the data is not ours, it's taken by us. Because sometimes, and it was on Mike Hosting's radio show recently, he came out and said, oh, these are just Randstad clients. Who cares who wins? Well, half the clients on the list, we'd love them to be our clients, but a lot aren't. A lot aren't on that list. We would love them. We'd love to work with all of them.
Sometimes get an email and I don't trust this, I'm not going to cooperate or.
Yeah, how they reach out, that would be up to them. I don't know that part, sorry. Yeah, but they keep going until they get 4,000 people there. So yeah, and to a certain point. So sometimes it gets a little bit harder for them because they might say, okay, we've got enough people in Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch. How do we get people in Nelson? How do we get people in New Plymouth? Like, because we can go by every region in New Zealand as well and look for that. So
Even base though, right?
it tries to match population levels. So there's more people in Auckland. No, exactly. So the breakdown is matching population levels within 5%. So there's more people in Auckland, there's more people in Wellington, there's more Christchurch, but we have respondents that match population level for Whangarave, Napier, New Plymouth, Nelson, examples. Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
I wondered if you had any insight how willing employers are to teach the employees AI or about AI.
Yeah, so look, this is another research, not this one, that came out earlier this year in terms of what people, so it's more from an employee perspective than an employer perspective, but what employees are wanting to learn and grow on. So what they perceive their employer to want to teach them on is around AI first. The number one thing that New Zealanders said in that research that they wanted to learn on was leadership skills, was the number one thing. AI ranked number 2 on the list of what employees wanted to see there. But the number one, they wanted to learn leadership skills and upgrow on that was the number one thing. So, cool. Well, thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ryan. You're all relieved.
Yeah.
Enjoy your snacks and.
Yeah. Happy for anyone to ask any questions or anything you want to know now. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. I'll just go turn that one off.